Thank you, Eduardo. Hi, my name is Hakan Satiroglu. I'm an entrepreneur. By design, we just show you what a life of entrepreneur could be. A lot of technical difficulties, and things are not working at all times, and where you have to pretty much improvise to get going. So that was a great setup, guys. It looked like it was a mistake, but that worked out. I named my presentation Entrepreneurial Journey. I could come out here, give you guys all the details about like what you could be doing, what you should be doing. I much rather take you through what I experienced pretty much from birth on to this day, and then I'll sprinkle some ideas along the way. I'll walk you through some of my background, my first big idea, how did I get introduced to education and technology, how did Xplana came about, and future trends that I see that I think you guys will be very interested in related to education, and a few words on what I think is the most important things you guys can focus on as entrepreneurs. And then I have a special announcement for you guys I saved for the last. So a lot of you, you read great magazines and you see things like, startup success rates and, 1 in 10, failure rates are great. To me, what I learned is there's no such a thing as a failure in startup. If you started something up, the experience you're going to gain from that, you're going to keep taking to the next level. And that, to me, is success in its first stage. So trick is just go for it, whatever the ideas you have, and just start it up. And 4 things I wrote here that I learned over the years that really helps me are key things like adaptability, your drive, how curious you are, and your determination in terms of how successful you're going to be. Now, story as it goes. I'm originally from Istanbul, Turkey. I put some nice, beautiful pictures for those of you who haven't been there. And as I was putting together this presentation, which is very difficult to just cram everything into 15 minutes or so, I looked back to my family and I realized I actually come from an entrepreneurial family. My grandparents on top, my grandfather started the very first baby food factory in Turkey back in the 50s, which was unheard of. He could have easily worked for my grandma's father, was a big industrialist in Turkey, and instead of getting a job from him, he just borrowed the money and just built the first, and it was very successful. My mom, while preparing us for a bunch of exams similar to SATs, she says, look, there's no real books out there that I can use to just teach them. And so she starts writing her own book, and within a year it became the bestseller. And then she started another tape-based learning, and recently she started an education center in Istanbul. And I look back, I'm proud of what kind of a brave moves they made for their time, for what my mom did as a single mom, etc. And only thing I look back and I wish they had better advisors, better mentors. This is going to be one of the critical things for all of you guys to kind of obtain over the time. And then I come along and, elementary school, I had a bicycle shop where I encountered our first competition where the local shop's owner's son beat up my cousin, so we had to just, close down shop. That was stiff competition. And I had all these Nintendo games before, Xboxes and everything else. So I started a rental business. This is early 80s in high school. And then I did a gambling business. Many things like gambling is legal in Turkey, where you had to basically bet on what scores your classmates are going to have in any given exam. That was very successful. So, of course, these things weren't scalable. It was good early experiences. Then I fulfilled the first dream of mine, coming to the United States. I always dreamt about it. I was watching things like Miami Vice. People of a certain age will remember LA Law. So I'm like, look, I got to get there no matter what. And then my grandfather, who I showed you earlier, said, look, get into a school and you can go. So I picked Boston. I have no idea why. And my first biggest challenge was learning English. I didn't speak much. I still have an accent. So I came to their great program here, CLOP. I went through 4 years of college. And right after college, I got my first job as an accountant, believe it or not. As an entrepreneur, that's a very difficult thing to do, at a company called Cooper's on Library at the time. And then, I was getting bored. I'm like, I can't be here. So I teamed up with a professor of mine who was teaching here at the time, and we started a basketball league. Our goal was to take on NCAA and what we believed to be an injustice in the whole athletic system. The schools were creating enormous monies from the athletes, but we felt like athletes weren't getting anything back. Maybe scholarships, but the graduation rates were less than 30%. So we set out to create this league, and it was pretty good, but again, we were up against NCAA. Then NBA saw us as a threat, so within 3 years we folded. There was no money raised. This is like mid to late 90s, and it just when like the Googles of the world coming out. We were successful in securing sponsorship from then giants Lycos and Yahoo. So I learned a lot, throughout that process. And after that, I'm like, okay, you know what? This idea didn't work. I felt like I missed the whole dot-com boom. Everything was going belly up at that time. And I started helping some friends with business development. And I asked them who their clients were. They said, look, we have these clients, a Norwegian search company. And they said, we also did a small project for a company called McGraw-Hill. I'm like, I think I know that name. I'm not too familiar with. I kind of know that logo from somewhere, but I can't put two and two together. So I started researching. I'm like, oh, these guys are educational publishers. And so I went to their office. I said, look, we've done a $15,000 project for you guys, a website for one of your political science projects. And what else do you guys have? And I said, look, you were very, happy with the work we've done. Meanwhile, my friends are a shop of 3 people, a programmer, a web designer, and a business person. So they're like, look, we have a giant project coming out. It's our best-selling psychology project, and we need to ship a CD-ROM. I realized this is the time, early 2000s, when all the publishers are trying to figure out how they're going to move from books to a digital environment. They started with websites. Now they are trying to do CD-ROMs. As you know now, you have eBooks and etc. So at that point, we pitched them a price where, I came back to them, and I said, look, this project is going to cost a lot more than $15,000. We're at $100,000. What do you think? Meanwhile, I'm like scared. These guys are going to shut it down. They're like, yeah, that price is really a problem for us. You need to charge us $150,000 for this. I'm like, you guys, you want me to increase price? They're like, yep, we budgeted so much for this. If you don't use this, we're going to lose it. So I'm excited. I'm going back. Meanwhile, I'm thinking, I'm like, wait a second. My research shows these guys are $2-3 billion company. What are they doing with a 2-3 person shop in Back Bay trying to build this, what they call a very important project? Meanwhile, that project actually cost us $250,000, so we lost a lot of money. But that was the moment that I said, okay, you know what? This is the industry I want to be in. As I researched all the other publishers, I realized, look, they're in the same boat. Only challenge I had, I realized there were 3 pillars that was important for us to be successful where things were going. Learning, which the institutions were great at, technology with the programming, and the content where publishers knew well. But nobody really just mastered all 3. And meanwhile, I have no experience in any of these things. All I see is the opportunity. So I surrounded myself with as many experts as I can fund. I had some funds that I just started self-funding the company, and I launched Xplana in 2004. And over the past 12 years, I get to know the company and the industry pretty well. So what we did was we developed at least a dozen products. We had one of the earliest learning management systems. We were competing with the Blackboards. Now we have Moodles and Sakai's that nobody really here likes, and nobody wants to admit that. So, we had those products. Our earliest product that, is still being used today was our ebook platform. I think we had one of the very first Flash-based ebooks in the marketplace. Trust me, that's why I'm still in this business, because some publishers are still using that same technology we built in 2004. And our new product that's coming out in a month is probably going to just make that obsolete. But, it's kind of amazing how that works. So first few years, it was very successful. I generated as much as $4 or $5 million a year in just doing all these one-offs with the products we had, white labeling the learning management system. And my dream was to be the best R&D shop for these publishers, okay? I was proud of that. We were spending more money building new products than the billion-dollar companies were doing. But very soon, we started to become a competition to their internal teams, and we were making them look bad. We were doing things half the time, you know, 1/10 of a cost what they were capable of doing. So they started cutting funding left and right. So in 2008, we started losing money more than I can imagine. So I was borrowing money from banks, I was borrowing money from parents, friends, anybody I can find. And then in 2009, early on, I realized we're just gonna lose it. I need to shut this down. I said, look, let's do one more effort. I believe we can do this. We shut everything down. We just focused on our ebook platform. And we just surrounded it with some social networking elements. That led to us getting a giant project from an Elsevier publishing subsidy, and they were doing nursing books. And we beat the current market leader at the time called VitalSource. And that all of a sudden caught the attention of the largest textbook distributor in the country, called MBS. They're out of Missouri. A lot of the books you see, you get on the Barnes & Noble bookstores, it usually goes through these guys. If you have a used book, it came from these guys. So within hearing about this new platform, they approached me in May of 2009. They said, we just want to buy you out. We like this platform. We really need to go to the next level. We want to own our own technology. So they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. I didn't have much of a choice. And in October, within 4 months, the deal was closed. It was, again, unheard of. So, you know, that's how it went. Now, with the support they had, last year, we launched a product called Xplana.com. You're welcome to check it out. You know, I'll meet you guys afterwards. It is, to me, what's coming in the education field within the next 3 to 5 years. So pay close attention to it. It's what I call a social learning network. It combines elements of Facebook, combines elements of iTunes, Google, where a student could find any content they are looking for, any subject, whether it's free open source content we aggregated or the premium content from the publishers that, you know, we already working with. So I believe that's going to be the future. We're also hoping the site will become an R&D shop both for students, entrepreneurs like yourselves, and the teachers alike. We also have a new platform launching within the next month. It's going to be a new ebook reader that has basically XML. Now, this slide for me is important. This is where I think the education is going. That's why I want to stick to it, education and technology. The 3 things I see happening are we're going to have a lot of micro-publishing houses are coming out. So a person with the right content, because now the problem of pipelines are being solved. You don't have big publishers having to go door to door trying to sell professors or students the kind of textbooks. You're going to have a lot of micro-publishing houses, one-person shops, small shops that are coming up with stellar content. Social learning portals, Google and Pearson. Pearson is the biggest publisher out there with over $4 billion in revenue. They just announced Open Class. So it's going to have a lot of the Google elements with Google+, the mail, the calendar, with Pearson's content in it. I'm hoping to be their bookshelf at this point with our new ebook reader. And the education app development is going to be huge. So if you're thinking of anything, go into that. I promise you I will just kind of recap by telling you what I think is important. Networking is the key thing you guys could spend time on. Build your own personal advisory board. Get yourself mentors, because anything you're doing, bounce off ideas from people like myself, your professors, your deans, your presidents of the schools. That's very key. Your team is going to be tremendously impacting your success in whatever you guys are doing. Not only the MBS bought my company because of the intellectual property we had, but they also bought it because of the team I built over the years. They kept every team. We just added a few more players, and we're still building the next generation product. Again, it's all about your passion and interest. Figure out what those are and go into those areas, because you're going to have to work crazy hours. You're going to have to face immense, challenges ahead of you. So you need to do something you're passionate about, that you're interested in. And as I mentioned before, online and mobile learning in education is going to be very, very key. The last thing I want to tell you guys, given I'm out here talking about mentorship, You know, as Eduardo mentioned, I graduated from the school. School went through tremendous changes over the last 20 years. We didn't even talk about entrepreneurship back then. There was only one school out, you know, on the suburbs called Babson was it. But I think BU is making great changes. We have great professors. We have a new dean, amazing president that's leading the way. So take advantage of that. So as a result, you know, I took this opportunity. I've been meaning to do this with a friend of mine over the past few weeks, and I said, what a great way to just me announcing, I'm going to create office hours. So, you know, entrepreneurs like yourselves could come and meet with us, and we'll have a website that I got, garageofficehours.com, and the Twitter tag, Garage Office Hours as well. So I want to be a resource to you guys and be a mentor and an advisor while you guys are trying to just do your startup. So on that note, thank you very much. It was a great pleasure.